Hey guys, tonight we're diving into something vibrant, wild, and incredibly fascinating. The story of how people in the roaring 1920s spent their free time in an age bursting with jazz, rebellion, glamour, and change. So before you settle in, take a breath, dim the lights, and let your imagination slip into a world where dancing crowds, hidden speakeasies, and daring new freedoms reshaped modern culture forever. And before we begin this lively journey, tell me, where are you watching from, and what time is it for you right now? As the 1920s began, people felt a sudden rush of excitement as the world shifted from war and hardship to celebration and possibility. New inventions appeared everywhere, changing the way ordinary people worked, traveled, and communicated with each other. And in this wave of modern energy, a new idea quietly entered their lives: the idea of enjoying free time. For the first time, workers in many cities had shorter schedules, giving them hours that were not for labor, but for themselves. Factories became faster and more efficient, allowing everyday people to leave early enough to explore hobbies, passions, and simple pleasures. And these extra hours became the doorway to a new kind of life, where leisure was no longer a luxury, but a growing expectation. City streets began to glow brighter at night, as electric lights spread and turned ordinary evenings into exciting escapes. People walked through lively corners, filled with music, chatter, and the scent of fresh street food rising from vendors, and every illuminated street invited them to step outside their old routines and taste something new. Families who once stayed close to home suddenly had access to automobiles, which opened doors to weekend adventures. Country roads became peaceful paths for long drives, where laughter, wind, and curiosity shaped a new kind of family time. And each little journey reminded people that the world was larger, friendlier, and more beautiful than they had known before. Dance halls rose in every town, filling the air with jazz melodies that pulled young people toward the rhythm of modern freedom. Couples and friends poured in every night, moving their feet to lively beats that echoed through smoky rooms and wooden floors. And in each spinning step, the youth of the decade felt a thrilling sense of identity forming right in front of them. Cafes became warm places where people gathered after work to sip coffee, enjoy pastries, and talk about new dreams and discoveries. Writers, artists, workers, and students all shared tables, discussing ideas that had once seemed too bold or too distant. And these simple conversations helped shape a decade that valued creativity, curiosity, and daring new expressions. As the decade settled deeper into everyday life, people began noticing how their surroundings slowly transformed with new comforts and conveniences. Shops stayed open later than ever before, giving communities a colorful place to wander, explore, and escape from their long work days. And these extended hours brought a new kind of freedom, where evenings no longer felt like a rush, but a gentle unfolding of time. In many neighborhoods, libraries started attracting people who previously had little time or energy for reading but now sought stories and knowledge. Quiet rooms filled with warm lamps and wooden shelves became peaceful retreats where minds wander to faraway lands, and every borrowed book whispered a silent reminder that leisure could also be thoughtful, meaningful, and wonderfully slow. Public parks experienced a revival as families, children, and elderly citizens reclaimed open spaces that once went unnoticed. Green lawns, pathways, and calm lakesides became familiar weekend companions, where life felt simple, warm, and beautifully uninterrupted, and each shared picnic or relaxed conversation deepened the bond between communities experiencing this new era together. Radio broadcasts began reaching homes with powerful voices that told stories, played music, and delivered news in real-time. Living rooms turned into miniature theaters where families sat closely gathered around glowing dials and humming speakers. And those soft crackling sounds became a comforting rhythm marking the beginning of a modern, leisurely evening. Bicycles became popular, again, not just as practical transport, but as joyful tools for exploring fields, hills, and nearby towns. Young people rode for hours, feeling the wind carry away their worries as they discovered hidden paths and small scenic corners, and through each quiet ride they found a peaceful space where the world felt wide open and full of promise. Board games and simple home entertainment became cherished. Nighttime activities enjoyed by families across different backgrounds. Living rooms filled with laughter-friendly competition and the warmth of shared moments that cost little but meant everything. And these small gatherings strengthened family ties in a decade, learning how to enjoy time without rushing. People also found comfort in small hobbies like sewing, painting, sketching, or repairing old items in the calm of their homes. These simple, creative acts turned ordinary evenings into moments of focus, imagination, and personal satisfaction, and every finished piece became a gentle symbol of a life finally allowed to slow down. Newspapers expanded their entertainment sections, offering puzzles, crosswords, and serialized stories that readers eagerly awaited. Morning routines shifted as people enjoyed the quiet pleasure of solving clues or reading the next chapter of a gripping adventure, and this daily habit gave them something to look forward to, something steady and enjoyable. As the world changed rapidly around them, bathhouses in cities became popular relaxation spots where people unwound from the noise and bustle of modern life. Warm water, steam, and soft lighting created a soothing escape that felt luxurious yet surprisingly accessible, and these peaceful rituals offered a moment of calm in a decade defined by movement, speed, and transformation. Trains offered scenic day trips that attracted groups of friends seeking novelty beyond their own towns and neighborhoods. Passengers watched shifting landscapes through wide windows, feeling both connected to the world and refreshingly detached from their worries, and every short journey added a gentle sense of discovery to the rhythm of their growing leisure culture. Local festivals grew larger, brighter, and more vibrant as communities organized music shows, craft markets, and evening gatherings. These events brought together farmers, merchants, teachers, and travelers who shared food stories, songs, and collective joy. And in these shared celebrations, people felt the heartbeat of a decade, learning how to live fully in the present. Many individuals began keeping personal journals to record experiences, thoughts, and reflections during this fresh era of freedom. Writing quietly before bed became a soothing nightly ritual where emotions drifted slowly onto paper, and these journals captured the intimate evolution of a society awakening to the beauty of free time. As new technologies continued spreading through cities and small towns, people found themselves surrounded by conveniences they had never imagined before. Streetcars and trams moved smoothly across neighborhoods, giving families an easy and affordable way to explore places beyond their daily routes, and each short ride invited them to step into a wider world where curiosity slowly replaced routine. Many communities opened local recreation centers where adults and children could enjoy activities without needing expensive memberships or equipment. These halls offered simple pleasures like indoor games, small performances, and friendly social gatherings that welcomed everyone, and in these shared spaces, people experienced a growing sense of belonging in a decade reshaping how leisure felt. The rise of photography gave families a new way to capture their happiest moments as portable cameras became affordable for ordinary households. Picnics, birthdays, street parades, and weekend outings were suddenly preserved in small snapshots that people proudly stored in albums, and every developed photo carried a quiet warmth, reminding them of a time when life felt both modern and wonderfully light. Tea rooms became elegant yet accessible places where friends gathered to enjoy warm drinks, pastries, and gentle conversations after long mornings. Soft music, faint laughter, and the clinking of cups created an atmosphere that felt both comforting and refined, and in these delicate surroundings, people discovered a peaceful corner of leisure away from the noise of daily life. For many individuals, learning became a new form of relaxation as evening classes opened in schools, community halls, and small private studios. Adults studied languages, art, accounting, or music, not out of necessity but out of curiosity and personal satisfaction, and these classes transformed free time into an opportunity for growth at a pace that felt calm and welcoming. Amusement parks popped up near busy cities, offering rides, games, and dazzling lights that drew families from miles away. Children ran between attractions with unrestrained excitement, while adults enjoyed the rare feeling of playfulness returning to their lives, and these bright, open spaces became symbols of a decade learning how to celebrate joy. Some people found comfort in simply sitting on their porches or balconies during warm evenings, watching neighbors pass by in the fading light. Conversations drifted across quiet streets, while the sound of distant jazz or a passing automobile filled the air, and these moments of doing nothing at all became gentle reminders that leisure could be beautifully simple. Craft clubs formed across communities, inviting people to gather and share their skills in weaving pottery or small handmade decorations. Participants talked, laughed, and exchanged techniques as they worked with their hands in calm, patient movements. And these gatherings nurtured friendships rooted in creativity and shared peaceful habits. Many cities expanded their botanical gardens, creating serene paths filled with exotic flowers, carefully arranged displays, and cool shaded benches. Visitors wandered slowly through these natural sanctuaries, seeking relief from the rising pace of modern urban life, and each quiet step between blooming colors helped them reconnect with a softer rhythm of living. Families began exploring night markets that offered food, music, crafts, and lively vendors, presenting new tastes and handmade goods. The mix of warm lantern light, gentle chatter, and drifting scents created an atmosphere that felt magical and inviting. And these night strolls became cherished memories of a decade awakening to possibilities after sunset. People who enjoyed quiet indoor moments adopted the growing trend of letter writing, turning correspondence into a peaceful hobby. They spent evenings composing thoughtful notes, sharing stories, dreams, and reflections with friends across distant places, and every sealed envelope carried a piece of their world, traveling gently from one life to another. Some individuals turned to nature as hiking trails became more accessible and organized. Walking groups formed in many communities. Participants climbed hills, crossed wooden bridges, and followed winding paths that offered refreshing views away from industrial noise, and each journey into natural scenery gave them a renewed sense of calm and freedom. Small music gatherings became common in neighborhood homes where friends brought instruments and played soft melodies late into the evening. Warm, dimly lit rooms filled with gentle harmonies that eased away the stress of long days and busy routines. And in these shared notes, people discovered a kind of relaxation that felt intimate and timeless. As city planning grew more intentional, wide boulevards, parks, and pedestrian pathways opened up fresh spaces where people could wander without hurry. Families strolled through these open stretches, enjoying the gentle blend of sunlight, soft breezes, and distant urban sounds drifting through the air. And with every unhurried walk, they felt the decades slowly teaching them how to enjoy movement even without a destination. Restaurants began offering fixed-price lunches and dinners, creating opportunities for ordinary people to enjoy meals outside their homes. This new dining culture encouraged friends, co-workers, and families to meet over food that once felt too luxurious or out of reach, and each shared plate pulled communities closer as they tasted flavors that reflected a modernizing world. Tailor shops and dressmakers grew in popularity as individuals found joy not only in wearing new clothes, but in choosing them with personality. People experimented with vibrant patterns, shorter cuts, and styles influenced by cinema magazines and jazz performers, and through every outfit they discovered a quiet confidence shaped by the freedom of self-expression. Community theaters emerged in small towns, offering amateur plays, storytelling nights, and dramatic performances by locals who simply loved the stage. Audiences filled wooden seats with warm anticipation, watching neighbors transform into heroes, villains, and poets under soft, glowing lights. And in these humble productions, people experienced a shared magic that blended creativity with companionship. Newly opened ice cream parlors became favorite gathering spots where children giggled over cold treats and adults enjoyed a sweet escape from their busy routines. Bright counters, clinking spoons, and colorful flavors created a cheerful atmosphere that felt both refreshing and youthful, and these simple moments added lightness to daily life in a decade eager to embrace joy. Shopping districts transformed into lively, walkable areas where window displays became miniature works of art designed to attract curious eyes. People paused to admire dresses, books, radios, and elegant household items arranged behind polished glass, with remarkable attention to detail. And this practice of window shopping turned leisure into a gentle experience of dreaming, imagining, and exploring possibilities. Urban rooftops became new gathering spaces as hotels and restaurants hosted evening events under the open sky. Soft lamps, gentle breezes, and panoramic views created an enchanting environment where couples and friends lingered for hours, and these elevated gatherings reminded people that leisure could could feel luxurious without needing extravagance. Mail-order catalogs brought a sense of adventure into homes far from large cities, offering goods, hobbies, and activities that once felt distant. People spent evenings flipping through pages filled with tools, toys, clothing, and household gadgets, planning small purchases that brightened their lives. And each package delivered to their doorstep felt like a tiny celebration of modern convenience. Fishing and small boating trips along quiet rivers became peaceful weekend escapes for individuals yearning for silence and natural beauty. Friends carried simple gear, packed light snacks, and set out early to enjoy the calm sway of water beneath. Gentle morning light and these serene outings offered a grounding balance to a decade often defined by speed and energy. Civic clubs, such as reading circles, history groups, and community improvement societies welcomed members seeking purposeful leisure. Gatherings were filled with thoughtful discussions, shared projects, and a sense of contribution to something larger than themselves, and through these collective efforts, people found meaning woven into their free time. Fruit orchards and countryside farms opened their gates to visitors who wanted to experience seasonal activities like cherry picking and apple harvests. Adults and children moved through rows of trees, filling baskets while enjoying the earthy sense of leaves, soil, and ripe fruit, and these seasonal excursions connected them to traditions, both old and newly rediscovered. Water fountains, public squares, and open courtyards became natural meeting points where musicians, artists, and performers entertained passers-by. Crowds formed circles around dancers, violinists, and storytellers whose talents brought life to ordinary afternoons, and these spontaneous moments created a sense of wonder in daily life that felt uniquely modern. People began collecting small items such as stamps, postcards, or decorative tins, using their free time to organize and expand their personal treasures. Each new addition represented a story connection or memory that brought quiet satisfaction to their carefully built collections, and these hobbies offered a gentle way to appreciate the beauty found in small details. Newspaper stands sold not only news, but magazines focused on travel, fashion, photography, home decoration, and emerging popular culture. Readers spent evenings flipping through glossy pages, dreaming of distant places, or imagining new ways to shape their homes and ambitions, and these printed worlds became windows into lifestyles that felt both inspiring and achievable. Some individuals used their leisure hours to volunteer in hospitals, orphanages, or charity events, offering comfort, companionship, and practical help. These acts of kindness created a deep sense of fulfillment that resonated far beyond the moment of service, and through giving their time, many discovered a purpose stronger than entertainment alone. Public swimming pools expanded across towns, giving people a refreshing escape during warm seasons and a new form of exercise. Laughter splashing water and echoing voices filled these blue open spaces as families and friends enjoyed moments of cool relief, and these shared afternoons became some of the decade's most cherished memories. Street performers and small jazz bands often played on corners, near markets, and theaters, drawing crowds with energetic rhythms and upbeat melodies. People stopped on their way home, swaying, tapping their feet, and letting the music brighten their mood, and in these lively notes, the spirit of the roaring 20s came alive for everyone regardless of age, wealth, or background. Families spent more evenings hosting simple gatherings where neighbors shared homemade dishes, stories, and gentle humor. Warm candlelight, soft chatter, and the comfort of familiar faces created an atmosphere that felt safe and deeply human. And these intimate evenings reminded people that leisure thrived best in moments of connection. Some took up gardening in small backyards and shared lots, finding peace in planting flowers, vegetables, and herbs that grew steadily. With time, hours spent tending soil, watering plants, and watching new buds form became soothing companions to their busy weeks, and every bloom or harvest felt like a quiet achievement nurtured by patience and care. Horseback riding clubs attracted young enthusiasts who enjoyed exploring meadows, trails, and countryside paths from a different vantage point. The rhythmic sound of hooves, the cool air brushing past, and the deep bond with the animal created moments of harmony with nature, and each ride offered a peaceful escape from the growing hum of modern cities. Photography studios offered portrait sessions where families dressed carefully to capture moments that would last for generations. Soft backgrounds, thoughtful poses, and gentle lighting created images that felt both formal and deeply personal. And these portraits became cherished reminders of a time when leisure blended beautifully with memory-making. Railway companies promoted scenic routes that allowed passengers to enjoy mountains, forests, and coastlines through large window carriages. People traveled not for necessity, but for the pleasure of witnessing landscapes glide by in rhythmic, gentle motion. And these journeys turned travel itself into a form of quiet, delightful leisure. As the decade matured, more neighborhoods installed decorative street lamps that cast warm golden circles on evening sidewalks. Couples walked slowly beneath this gentle glow, enjoying conversations that drifted easily through the calm night air. And these illuminated paths turned ordinary streets into inviting promenades meant for wandering without purpose. Public libraries introduced storytelling hours for both children and adults, creating small gatherings filled with imagination and quiet wonder. Visitors sat listening to rich voices bring tales of adventure, mystery, and folklore to life in beautifully hushed rooms. And these stories offered a restful escape that made free time feel deeply nourishing. Many households adopted gramophones, allowing them to enjoy records that brought music directly into their living spaces. Families gathered around spinning discs, listening to vibrant melodies, gentle ballads, and lively dance rhythms that echoed warmly through their homes. And this access to music transformed evenings into moments of intimacy and shared delight. Universities opened their doors to the public by hosting weekend lectures on history, science, philosophy, and world cultures. Citizens from all backgrounds attended these talks, eager to expand their understanding of the rapidly changing world. And these thoughtful sessions turned leisure into a bridge between curiosity and knowledge. Small travel clubs formed among office workers, factory laborers, and teachers, where members planned group outings to nearby towns and natural attractions. These trips became monthly traditions filled with planning, laughter, and shared excitement as people discovered new places together, and every journey deepened friendships that lasted far beyond the decade itself. Bookstores became warm cultural hubs where shelves overflowed with novels, poetry, anthologies, and magazines reflecting global trends. People wandered aisles, choosing stories that matched their moods, whether romantic, thrilling, philosophical, or humorous, and these quiet moments of browsing became tiny rituals of comfort in the evolving rhythm of modern life. Winter months inspired community, skating events on frozen ponds where families bundled in, scarves glided across the shimmering surface. Laughter echoed across icy fields as children held their parents' hands and learned to balance on thin metal blades, and these simple, seasonal joys added a soft magic to cold evenings. Neighborhood picnics became cherished weekend traditions where families spread blankets under trees and shared homemade pastries, fresh fruit, and warm bread. Children played simple games in open fields, while adults enjoyed slow conversations free from the demands of work, and these friendly gatherings strengthened the feeling of unity within communities discovering leisure together. Women's clubs flourished, offering activities such as cooking lessons, interior design workshops, and discussions on literature and current events. These spaces created opportunities for learning, connection, and self-expression. At a time when society was redefining women's roles, and each meeting nurtured confidence, independence, and new creative passions, barbershops and salons evolved into social centers where people gathered not only for grooming but to exchange news, humor, and opinions. Friendly banter filled these rooms, creating an atmosphere of warmth, familiarity, and light-hearted camaraderie, and these short visits became refreshing breaks that energized the day. Cafes introduced open mic nights where aspiring poets, singers, and musicians performed. In intimate, dimly lit corners, audiences listened, attentively sipping warm drinks and appreciating the raw creative expression unfolding before them, and these evenings cultivated a sense of artistic freedom that became emblematic of the era. Newspapers started running weekly adventure sections, describing exotic destinations and unusual activities that sparked public imagination. Readers followed these features eagerly, imagining themselves traveling through deserts, jungles, or snow-covered mountains, and even without leaving their homes, they experienced the thrill of distant worlds. In many towns, newly renovated riverbanks offered benches, gazebos, and open lawns, perfect for quiet relaxation. People sat watching rippling water move gently past as birds flew overhead. Sunlight danced along the river's surface, and this peaceful scenery became a popular retreat for those seeking silence and reflection. Weekend sewing circles became common among friends who enjoyed stitching quilts, clothing, or decorative household pieces. These gatherings encouraged conversation, collaboration, and skill sharing as hands moved steadily through fabric and thread. Finished creation carried the warmth of community effort. The booming newspaper industry introduced cartoon strips that entertained readers with humor, charm, and whimsical characters. Early morning hours became brighter as children and adults alike searched for their favorite comic stories. And this small routine added a cheerful rhythm to the start of each day. Open-air concerts in towns and cities attracted crowds who brought blankets and snacks to enjoy. Performances beneath the setting sun, the blend of natural surroundings and live music created moments that felt effortless and beautifully harmonious, and families treasured these evenings as some of their most memorable summer experiences. Men joined recreational leagues for bowling, billiards, and early versions of table tennis, discovering sports that were relaxed yet competitive. These friendly matches combined laughter, teamwork, and skill building in an atmosphere free from pressure, and the camaraderie forged in these games strengthened bonds among friends and colleagues. Some individuals turned to stargazing as new telescopes and astronomy guides became widely available to the public. People spent evenings on rooftops or open fields observing constellations, planets, and the shifting glow of the moon, and this quiet fascination connected them to timeless mysteries beyond the boundaries of the bustling world. Communities organized photography walks where groups traveled through markets, gardens, and historic districts, capturing moments of daily beauty. Participants compared techniques, shared tips, and cultivated a deeper appreciation for their surroundings. And these outings turned observation into a joyful, shared practice. People experimented with new culinary recipes inspired by magazines, cookbooks, and international influences that grew stronger during the decade. Evening hours often filled with the comforting aroma of fresh dishes baking, simmering, or roasting in kitchen ovens, and these meals brought families together in moments of warmth, patience, and creativity. Local fairs expanded each year, adding new games, colorful tents, and small attractions that delighted both young and old. Attendees wandered between booths, winning tiny prizes, sampling regional treats, and enjoying spontaneous entertainment. And these cheerful festivals became seasonal highlights eagerly awaited by entire communities. Athletic clubs encouraged gentle morning exercises such as stretching, breathing routines, and simple calisthenics practiced in open parks. Groups of friends and coworkers joined these sessions, welcoming the refreshing start to the day, and these calming activities promoted a sense of well-being that balanced the era's energetic lifestyle. Book discussion gatherings grew more common as people sought intellectual companionship in relaxed, informal settings. Participants read selected works, then met to share interpretations, thoughts, and personal reactions over light refreshments, and these thoughtful evenings created meaningful connections rooted in curiosity and reflection. Many people enjoyed leisurely rides on river ferries, which offered slow, scenic journeys along peaceful waterways. Passengers leaned against railings, feeling cool breezes while watching landscapes drift gently past. And these soothing trips, the 1920s streets pulsed with life as people flocked to cafes, public squares, and small theaters in search of vibrant social experiences. Children ran freely between friends, while adults engaged in animated conversations, exchanging news and opinions over warm drinks, and in every corner, the city itself seemed alive, inviting participation in a rhythm both playful and deliberate. Street musicians played lively tunes on corners near markets, attracting crowds who clapped, danced, and sometimes joined in spontaneously. The melody of violins, saxophones, and drums blended with the hum of passing automobiles, laughter, and street chatter, and these impromptu performances created small pockets of magic that made ordinary afternoons extraordinary. Neighborhood cinemas became central gathering places, offering both silent films and live performances that drew families together. Audiences filled darkened rooms with anticipation, experiencing stories of romance, adventure, and daring feats projected onto flickering screens, and through shared laughter, gasps, and applause, strangers found themselves united in fleeting moments of communal emotion. Dance halls and ballrooms rose to prominence, where jazz orchestras filled every corner with infectious rhythms. Couples and friends swirled across polished floors, spinning under chandeliers and soft candlelight that accentuated elegant attire, and each night spent dancing became an exercise in freedom, expression, and the pure joy of movement. Boardwalks along rivers, lakes, and oceans attracted crowds who strolled leisurely while listening to performers, sampling treats, and watching entertainers. Families played games, children ran between stalls, and vendors called out their wares in cheerful competition. And these promenades created spaces where communities celebrated both nature and human creativity. Bowling alleys, billiard rooms, and early versions of table tennis clubs emerged as popular pastimes, attracting friends seeking both fun and gentle competition. Laughter and playful rivalry echoed through brightly lit halls, accompanied by the clatter of pins and soft thuds of balls striking tables, and these indoor activities became a social bridge, bringing people together across class lines in light-hearted camaraderie. Open-air markets became centers of social life, where buyers lingered to browse colorful displays, chat with merchants, and enjoy spontaneous entertainment. Children raced between stalls, while parents haggled, sampled small foods, or listened to nearby musicians performing familiar tunes, and these lively exchanges transformed mundane shopping into an interactive cultural experience. Picnics and riverside outings became weekend traditions as friends and families packed baskets, blankets, and simple games. Groups settled under trees or along grassy banks, enjoying conversations, quiet reading, and shared meals in the fresh air, and each small gathering offered a sense of escape, grounding participants in nature and companionship. Local clubs for men and women flourished, hosting lectures, reading circles, and hobby meetings that cultivated intellectual and creative pursuits. Members exchanged ideas on literature, art, current events, and practical skills, creating spaces for curiosity and thoughtful interaction. And these clubs offered a structured way to balance leisure with personal enrichment and social networking. Tea rooms and small cafes became central hubs for conversation, music, and simple enjoyment of pastries and warm beverages. Patrons lingered for hours, enjoying the soft hum of background chatter, clinking cups, and the occasional impromptu performance, and these spaces became cozy retreats where time slowed, offering comfort and connection in the bustling city. Nightclubs and speakeasies, often hidden from plain sight, emerged as thrilling destinations for adults seeking rebellion and excitement. Live jazz, soft lighting, and carefully curated cocktails created atmospheres of elegance, danger, and liberation, and every visit became a carefully choreographed adventure. offering freedom from societal constraints and ordinary routines. Public gardens, fountains, and courtyards attracted musicians, dancers, and storytellers, drawing spontaneous crowds who gathered to watch and participate. People shared laughter, applause, and conversation while enjoying the natural beauty and unexpected entertainment, and these outdoor performances became democratic spaces where culture and leisure merged seamlessly. Festivals and fairs expanded in scope and spectacle, offering rides, games, music, and local crafts that entertained both young and old. Families wandered between attractions, sampling seasonal treats, watching performers, and taking part in community contests, and these lively gatherings became seasonal highlights that shaped communal memory and identity. Libraries introduced social reading events, encouraging neighbors to come together around books. Magazines and newspapers, people shared opinions, debated ideas, and discovered new perspectives in evenings that combined education with relaxed social interaction. And through these quiet communal spaces, literature became a bridge between personal reflection. Sports gained momentum as spectatorship and participation grew. From baseball to early forms of basketball and amateur soccer leagues, neighborhoods cheered for local teams, while players enjoyed friendly rivalry and the excitement of collective competition. And these organized games cultivated community pride, teamwork, and a shared sense of entertainment across generations. Ice cream parlors and confectionaries became weekend meeting spots where young people and families socialized over sweet treats. The chatter, laughter, and aroma of sugar filled the air as friends lingered long after their purchases, savoring both tastes and company. And these cheerful establishments offered simple pleasures that anchored the social calendar of the decade. Evening promenades along scenic streets and parks became a favorite ritual for couples, friends, and families. Lamplit pathways encouraged conversation, reflection, and quiet observation of the passing city life, and these gentle walks fostered the sense that leisure itself was a deliberate, cultivated act rather than a byproduct of idle time. Public lecture series, science exhibitions, and cultural demonstrations attracted curious minds, eager to learn, while socializing attendees lingered to ask questions, converse with presenters, and exchange ideas with fellow visitors. And through these events, education, culture, and entertainment intertwined seamlessly in the rhythm of modern leisure. Community music ensembles, amateur orchestras, and brass bands performed in squares, parks, and small halls across the city. Neighbors gathered to clap, dance, or simply enjoy the harmony, sharing moments of collective delight and cultural pride. And these performances created a sense of belonging, showing that music could unite people across differences. Social clubs organized outings to beaches, countryside estates, and riverbanks, where groups could relax, swim, and picnic together. Friends and families reveled in playful games, quiet reading, and informal conversations that flowed naturally into the evening. And each shared excursion reinforced the importance of spending free time together in meaningful ways. Traveling circuses, small theaters, and street performers continued to capture the imagination of people seeking excitement, and spectacle. Jugglers, acrobats, and clowns drew crowds that laughed, gasped, and marveled at feats beyond ordinary experience. And these traveling events reminded everyone that leisure could thrill, amuse, and inspire even in fleeting moments. Evening dances, house parties, and small musical gatherings became cherished opportunities to experiment with fashion, music, and social expression. Neighbors met, shared snacks, listened to records or live performances, and celebrated friendships in intimate, relaxed settings. And these private social events allowed ordinary people to experience the excitement, style, and creativity of the decade firsthand. Local dance halls began hosting themed evenings where jazz, blues, and early swing rhythms filled the air with energy and joy. Young people dressed in stylish attire twirled, tapped, and glided across polished wooden floors under soft hanging lights, and each night offered an escape from routine, transforming ordinary evenings into shared celebrations of rhythm and style. Public parks were alive with spontaneous games of croquet, bocce, and other light sports, where friends and neighbors gathered without planning. Children chased each other between trees while adults played quietly or watched with gentle amusement from nearby benches. And these playful moments became simple yet profound ways to strengthen bonds across communities. Boardwalk arcades grew increasingly popular, offering games of chance, small mechanical amusements, and prize-filled challenges. Laughter, cheers, and the occasional groan filled the air as people tested their skill, patience, and luck on simple machines. And these small competitions created delightful tension, community spirit, and moments of shared enjoyment. Weekend excursions to nearby beaches, lakes, and riverbanks became essential rituals for families seeking sun, water, and playful relaxation. Groups carried blankets, baskets, and small boats, moving at their own pace while soaking in warmth, laughter, and sunlight. And these trips became symbolic of the decade's growing appreciation for leisure as a fundamental part of life. Music halls featured emerging recording artists and local performers, providing a bridge between public entertainment and intimate engagement. Audiences listened with rapt attention, clapping, tapping their feet, and sometimes joining in chorus with familiar songs. And the combination of live energy and shared appreciation created communal experiences that lingered long after the night ended. Traveling vaudeville shows continued to captivate townspeople, combining comedy, magic, music, and acrobatics into captivating spectacles. Families arrived early to claim seats, chatting excitedly as the scent of popcorn and cotton candy filled the air. And these shows turned small towns into stages of wonder, uniting people in moments of awe and delight. Neighborhood cafes encouraged poetry readings, intimate musical recitals, and informal lectures, bringing intellectual curiosity into the sphere of social life. Patrons lingered over coffee, discussing the ideas, music, and performances they witnessed with friends and strangers alike. And these casual yet culturally rich spaces helped weave education into the fabric of everyday leisure. Local fairs became larger, incorporating craft displays, athletic competitions, and cooking contests alongside traditional rides and games. Communities gathered, exchanging stories, sampling foods, and cheering for neighbors in friendly rivalry. And the festive energy of fairs created lasting memories while showcasing local talents and traditions. Street parades emerged as an important form of community celebration, marking holidays, seasonal events, or commemorating local heroes' residence. Decorated windows joined floats and followed musicians as processions wound through streets, alive with color and sound. And these public rituals created a sense of unity, pride, and shared history that strengthened communal identity. Cinema matinees for children became increasingly popular, offering whimsical tales, moral stories, and playful animations. Young audiences filled rows of seats, wide-eyed and giggling, while parents enjoyed quiet moments nearby or explored local shops, and the shared experience of film created generational bonds, sparking imaginations that lingered long after the lights dimmed. Sports spectatorship expanded as minor league baseball, horse racing, and boxing drew crowds eager for excitement and camaraderie. People cheered, argued friendly bets, and discussed outcomes long after events concluded, creating social rituals around competition. And these games fostered collective identity and a sense of belonging through shared passions and anticipation. Amateur music ensembles formed in neighborhoods, featuring harmonicas, pianos, violins, and early brass instruments. Participants practiced in homes, garages, or small halls, occasionally performing for friends and neighbors during weekend evenings. And these ensembles provided both entertainment and community building, turning simple notes into shared cultural experience. Board game clubs grew popular, offering games of strategy, chance, and creativity that challenged minds while promoting social interaction. Members gathered weekly, debating rules, swapping tips, and celebrating victories over tea or light refreshments. And these gatherings allowed friends and acquaintances to connect intellectually while enjoying a calm, structured leisure activity. Riverside promenades attracted small jazz bands, poets, and impromptu theatrical performers, bringing culture into casual outdoor settings. Spectators sat on benches, listened, and occasionally clapped along, creating a democratic and participatory atmosphere. And these spontaneous encounters with art made culture accessible to everyone, blending relaxation with enrichment. Community picnics during national holidays grew into elaborate events, featuring games, performances, and shared meals among neighbors. Children participated in sack races or tug-of-war, while adults exchanged recipes, advice, and laughter in the shade of trees. And these gatherings offered structured yet relaxed leisure, fostering trust, friendship, and intergenerational connection. Local artisans showcased works of pottery, textiles, and small crafts during neighborhood fairs, attracting curious onlookers and buyers. Passersby observed the process, asked questions, and sometimes tried their hand at crafting under patient guidance. And these interactive experiences transformed everyday streets into living workshops of creativity and discovery. Open-air movie screenings emerged in town squares, allowing citizens to enjoy films under the stars in informal, community-oriented settings. Families and friends brought blankets, shared snacks, and marveled at stories projected onto large sheets or temporary screens. And these gatherings democratized entertainment, making culture accessible to those who could not visit traditional theaters. Garden clubs organized small exhibitions and competitions where members displayed plants, flowers, and landscape designs. Visitors wandered paths lined with blooms, offering praise, exchanging tips, and sharing seasonal knowledge. And these events encouraged appreciation of beauty, nature, and craftsmanship in everyday life. Evening strolls along streets, parks, and piers became habitual, offering informal opportunities for social interaction and observation. Couples, friends, and families walked together, pausing to listen to street musicians, admire shop displays, or watch children play. And these simple walks cultivated mindfulness, connection, and an awareness of leisure as a deliberate practice. Volunteer opportunities became popular as civic-minded citizens joined drives, charity events, and community projects. Participants worked together, socialized, and experienced the satisfaction of contributing to something larger than themselves. And these altruistic pursuits offered a dimension of leisure that combined purpose with connection and shared humanity. Rooftop gatherings grew in urban areas, offering sweeping views, soft music, and candlelit dinners above the city bustle. Neighbors and friends mingled in intimate settings, enjoying conversation, drinks, and gentle breezes that carried the sounds of distant streets. And these elevated evenings provided a peaceful sanctuary where social life could unfold with elegance and serenity. Outdoor ice skating rinks became community hubs in winter, with families and friends enjoying glides, laughter, and playful contests. The crisp air, sparkling ice, and echoing joy created magical experiences that defined seasonal leisure. And these moments reinforced a rhythm to the year, marking time with shared physical activity and delight. Evening musical salons emerged in private homes, featuring amateur singers, pianists, and small ensembles performing classical and popular pieces. Guests gathered in candlelit rooms, clapping, humming, and conversing softly between pieces. And these intimate performances nurtured appreciation for art while strengthening bonds among neighbors and friends. Sports leagues for bowling, early basketball, and tennis flourished, offering structured competition in a relaxed, accessible form. Local residents formed teams, held weekly matches, and celebrated wins with simple ceremonies, snacks, and applause. And these recreational activities became staples of social life, combining physical engagement with community interaction. Amusement parks expanded rapidly, introducing roller coasters, Ferris wheels, and fun houses that thrilled visitors of all ages. Families and friends wandered through winding paths, taking turns on rides and sampling sweet treats from vibrant stalls. And these parks became miniature worlds of escape, imagination, and shared exhilaration that lasted long after leaving. Public lecture halls hosted cultural discussions, debates, and scientific presentations open to all members of the community. Attendees brought notebooks, whispered questions to neighbors, and eagerly shared new ideas over coffee afterward. And these intellectual gatherings transformed curiosity into social interaction, blending knowledge with connection seamlessly. Community orchestras and choral groups gained popularity, performing at festivals, parks, and social clubs across towns. Neighbors applauded, clapped along, or simply listened in quiet appreciation, forming a collective experience rooted in music and these performances allowed both participants and audiences to experience artistry as a shared cultural treasure. Early sports clubs offered recreational leagues in soccer, baseball, and informal track events, attracting both young and old enthusiasts. Neighbors gathered to compete, spectate, and celebrate victories, creating traditions of playful rivalry and encouragement. And these physical contests fostered social cohesion, community pride, and the joy of movement during leisure hours. Neighborhood cafes began hosting small card games and bridge nights where participants engaged in strategy, skill, and friendly banter. Evenings were filled with laughter, discussion, and gentle teasing as groups competed while sipping coffee or tea, and these games became opportunities to socialize intellectually while enjoying a relaxed and inviting environment. Open-air movie nights became increasingly popular, projecting silent films onto temporary screens in parks and town squares. Families arrived early with blankets and chairs, sharing food and exchanging whispered commentary during the show. And these communal screenings transformed storytelling into a public spectacle accessible to everyone, creating lasting memories. Fairs and carnivals added contests of strength, agility, and cleverness, alongside rides and games. Drawing wide crowds, participants showcased skill while audiences cheered, laughed, and sometimes joined in playful competitions themselves, and the festive energy encouraged spontaneous joy, participation, and the celebration of local talent. Riverside promenades attracted musicians, jugglers, and acrobats, turning everyday walks into cultural experiences. Children and adults paused to watch, applaud, and occasionally engage in the performances, creating dynamic social moments. And these encounters brought art directly into everyday life, blending leisure with creativity seamlessly. Dance, marathons, and social ballroom events became popular for those seeking structured, energetic social interaction. Couples and friends moved across polished floors, rotating partners and enjoying music that ranged from jazz to early foxtrot. And these evenings fostered both physical expression and social connection, blending discipline with joy. Public parks hosted chess tournaments, checkers competitions, and simple strategy games where neighbors gathered to test minds. Spectators and players alike discussed moves, laughed at mistakes, and celebrated clever strategies, forming lively communities. And these mental contests provided an alternative form of entertainment that combined focus, patience, and friendly rivalry. Art exhibitions gained popularity as local artists displayed paintings, sculptures, and handmade crafts for neighborhood audiences. Visitors wandered carefully through exhibits, discussing colors, composition, and technique while learning from one another. And these small exhibitions made art accessible, encouraging cultural appreciation within everyday social life. Street fairs frequently featured storytelling booths where local elders and traveling performers shared tales of history, folklore, and imagination. Children gathered in circles while adults leaned closer, listening to the rhythms and drama of carefully told narratives. And these oral traditions became living culture, turning entertainment into both education and social bonding. Community gardens became gathering places where neighbors collaborated on planting, harvesting, and seasonal decorations. Residents shared tools, exchanged gardening tips, and celebrated the growth of flowers, vegetables, and shrubs together, and these shared green spaces provided relaxation, purpose, and community connection simultaneously. Picnics evolved into elaborate community events, incorporating music, informal contests, and collaborative cooking displays. Families arrive with wicker baskets, blankets, and homemade treats, settling under trees to eat, converse, and play, and these outdoor gatherings allowed leisure to unfold naturally, blending relaxation with shared creativity and celebration. Public squares often hosted early radio listening parties, as families gathered to experience broadcasts together. Listeners reacted to music, serialized stories, or comedy sketches, whispering comments to friends and neighbors nearby, and these communal experiences transformed technology into a social pastime that united entire neighborhoods. Local volunteer projects offered engaging leisure for those wanting to contribute meaningfully to their communities. Participants painted murals, cleaned streets, and helped organize events while chatting, laughing, and forming lasting friendships. And through these shared efforts, recreation and altruism combined, giving leisure a tangible and lasting purpose. Cultural salons in private homes encouraged informal performances, poetry readings, and musical recitals. Drawing small but attentive audiences, guests participated quietly, occasionally offering applause or discussion after each performance, creating a gentle rhythm of appreciation. And these intimate gatherings fostered creativity, conversation, and personal connection simultaneously. Traveling circuses introduced exotic animals, daring acrobatics, and comedic acts to neighborhoods, delighting both children and adults. People waited in long lines, shared snacks, and collectively gasped or cheered at breathtaking feats, reveling in spectacle. And these circuses transformed ordinary weekends into extraordinary experiences filled with wonder and social camaraderie. Civic centers and libraries hosted hobby clubs ranging from photography to model building, knitting, and calligraphy. Members met weekly, shared expertise, swapped materials, and celebrated each other's accomplishments with gentle encouragement. And these gatherings allowed leisure to be productive, creative, and socially enriching at the same time. Seasonal fairs and harvest festivals brought music, food, rides, and contests into small towns, creating a sense of ritual and anticipation. Communities prepared for weeks, decorating streets, planning competitions, and practicing performances for eager audiences. And these annual events became highlights of social life, reinforcing traditions and community bonds across generations. Rooftop gatherings and balcony soirees became fashionable in cities, offering elevated views, gentle breezes, and private yet social spaces. Guests enjoyed soft music, candlelight, and intimate conversation while observing the lively streets below, combining urbanity with leisure. And these settings offered unique perspectives, both literally and figuratively, on the rhythm of social life in the decade. Traveling music troupes visited towns, performing operettas, folk songs, and early jazz pieces that delighted audiences of all ages. Neighbors gathered in town halls or open courtyards, listening attentively, clapping, and sometimes dancing along to familiar tunes. And these mobile cultural experiences made art and entertainment accessible to everyone, bringing distant ideas into local life. Evening promenade rituals continued to thrive as friends, couples, and families walked along streets, parks, and piers after dinner. People paused to watch performers, converse with neighbors, or simply enjoy the ambient lights and gentle night breeze, and these habitual walks reinforced social bonds while cultivating mindfulness, reflection, and calm enjoyment of leisure. Outdoor theater performances became popular, combining drama, comedy, and musical interludes in intimate garden or square settings. Audiences sat on blankets or simple chairs, applauding, laughing, and sometimes joining in collective chants or songs, and these productions transformed public spaces into stages, blending participation with aesthetic appreciation seamlessly. Sports viewing grew as a social pastime, with local baseball, boxing, and track events drawing fans who gathered early to claim vantage points. Neighbors shared snacks, debated outcomes, and celebrated victories together, creating energetic yet friendly atmospheres. And these sporting events cultivated collective identity, pride, and camaraderie, making leisure simultaneously active and social. Public dance pavilions in city parks became regular destinations for evening leisure, attracting people from nearby neighborhoods. Couples and groups moved to the syncopated beats of jazz, ragtime, and early foxtrot, enjoying movement as a social art, and these dances offered a shared rhythm, creating bonds through music, motion, and laughter under the open sky. Street corners and alleys often hosted informal musicians, drawing passersby who paused to clap, hum, or tap along. Children danced spontaneously while adults smiled, exchanging stories and comments about the performer's skill and style, and these spontaneous moments turned ordinary streets into stages of community connection and cultural expression. Cultural societies organized costume balls where attendees dressed in period, exotic, or imaginative attire to celebrate creativity. Guests mingled, posed for informal photographs, and danced under soft lighting, enjoying both spectacle and interaction, and each event allowed individuals to explore identity, imagination, and leisure simultaneously in a shared public space. Community theater groups flourished, performing in small halls, outdoor courtyards, and even large living rooms in wealthy homes. Local actors rehearsed diligently, creating performances filled with humor, drama, and carefully timed music cues, and these productions made art accessible while fostering civic pride and social cohesion, giving leisure both purpose and delight. Public skating rinks, both indoor and outdoor, became centers of winter recreation, where families and friends gathered. Children raced across the ice, while adults glided gracefully or attempted playful tricks, sharing laughter and encouragement. And these frozen arenas transformed cold seasons into joyful, interactive social experiences filled with movement and fun. Street fairs frequently featured temporary puppet shows, storytelling tents, and magic acts that entertained children and adults alike. Families gathered on folding chairs or blankets, eagerly following each performance while exchanging cheerful commentary, and these traveling entertainers provided whimsical, ephemeral magic that became a shared highlight of community life. Amateur photography clubs emerged, organizing walks through neighborhoods, parks, and markets to capture life in motion. Members compared techniques, exchanged tips, and shared prints that preserved both ordinary and extraordinary moments. And these activities transformed observation into creative expression, merging art, leisure, and social engagement seamlessly. Neighborhood cafes and tea rooms hosted small competitions like poetry recitals, writing contests, and music challenges. Participants and spectators engaged, applauded, and discussed techniques while enjoying pastries, coffee, or tea, and these gatherings cultivated both creativity and friendly competition, making leisure intellectually stimulating and socially rewarding. Community boating excursions along rivers and lakes became popular. Weekend activities for groups seeking gentle adventure. Families paddled together, shared small picnics on floating docks, and observed wildlife while laughing at minor mishaps. And these peaceful trips combined exercise, nature, and conversation into moments of memorable leisure. Local orchestras often held free or low-cost matinee concerts during weekdays to make culture accessible to all. Children and older adults alike attended, listening to classical, jazz, or folk music while discovering the joy of attentive listening. And these sessions bridged generational gaps, fostering shared appreciation and cultural continuity. Early radio clubs allowed enthusiasts to gather and listen to broadcasts collectively, experiencing news, music, and storytelling together. Neighbors huddled around sets, commenting quietly, exchanging insights, and laughing at comedic sketches or dramatic scenes. And this shared technology-mediated leisure became a new form of socialization, blending innovation with companionship. Street artists and chalk painters drew intricate murals and playful designs on sidewalks. During fair seasons and public celebrations, children and adults paused, watched, and sometimes joined in, creating collaborative art that adorned public spaces temporarily. And these temporary installations turned everyday paths into living galleries, promoting creativity, interaction, and delight. Neighborhood book swaps became common, offering residents opportunities to exchange novels, magazines, and serialized stories. Readers lingered, discussed plot points, and discovered new authors while bonding over shared literary tastes. And these simple exchanges transformed quiet reading into a social, dynamic, and engaging pastime. Traveling circuses continued to offer exotic animals, acrobats, and daring feats, captivating communities in small towns and cities alike. Spectators waited patiently, shared meals, and gasped together at feats that seemed impossible, creating collective excitement, making weekends feel like miniature festivals of imagination. Boardwalks and piers provided informal performance stages where storytellers and musicians entertained crowds. Families strolled slowly, stopping to watch, applaud, and occasionally join in interactive acts or games. And these casual performances integrated leisure into daily life, allowing art to reach everyone without barriers. Community potluck dinners gained popularity, bringing neighbors together to share food, stories, and humor in informal settings. Adults and children alike contributed dishes, exchanged cooking tips, and enjoyed spontaneous conversation over warm meals. And these gatherings reinforced social cohesion while turning simple nourishment into a shared, cultural, and festive experience. Outdoor gymnastics and calisthenics clubs attracted both young people and adults eager for exercise in the fresh air. Groups met at dawn or dusk, stretching, running, and practicing coordinated movements under the guidance of informal instructors, and these gatherings combined health, discipline, and social bonding, turning exercise into an engaging communal ritual. Amateur musical performances often accompanied small neighborhood parades, holiday celebrations, or civic festivals. Bands and soloists played lively tunes while neighbors clapped, sang along, and sometimes danced spontaneously in the streets. And these interactive displays created joy, participation, and a sense of shared celebration accessible to everyone. Seasonal harvest festivals incorporated cooking competitions, music, and folk dancing alongside traditional games and rides. Communities prepared for weeks, decorating venues, rehearsing performances, and planning collaborative contests for all ages, and these events became anchor points for social life, ritualizing leisure in meaningful and festive ways. Volunteer-led fairs, bazaars, and charity events became common, combining entertainment, commerce, and social responsibility. Attendees browsed stalls, enjoyed performances, and contributed to fundraising for local causes, fostering generosity alongside fun. And these gatherings created purpose-driven leisure that integrated entertainment with civic engagement seamlessly. Neighborhood movie nights, held in community halls or converted storefronts, allowed residents to enjoy films collectively. Audiences brought blankets, snacks, and good cheer, laughing, gasping, and sharing commentary in shared delight. And these screenings made cinema a democratic, participatory, and profoundly social form of entertainment. Public gardens and green spaces hosted informal musical recitals, dances, and storytelling evenings where families gathered after work. Residents arrived early, laid out picnic blankets, and immersed themselves in cultural experiences that combined nature and artistry. And these gatherings reinforced the idea that leisure was best enjoyed in openly communal and interactive environments. Rooftop gatherings and private balcony soirees offered quiet retreats in the urban landscape where friends could mingle, observe, and converse. Soft candlelight, gentle music, and cityscape views created a relaxed, elegant atmosphere for socializing above the busy streets below. And these elevated social spaces emphasized calm, intimacy, and perspective as integral aspects of leisure in urban life. Community art fairs gained prominence, with painters, sculptors, and craft makers displaying works in parks, squares, and town halls. Visitors wandered from stall to stall, admiring creations, asking questions, and sometimes purchasing keepsakes for home or gifts. And these events offered both inspiration and shared appreciation, turning everyday leisure into cultural exploration. Public storytelling corners became popular during summer months, often shaded by trees or in open plazas, drawing attentive crowds. Children sat cross-legged on blankets while adults lingered nearby, captivated by tales of adventure, folklore, and local legends. And these spontaneous gatherings preserved oral traditions while fostering a sense of community through shared imagination. Traveling puppet troupes performed in markets, fairs, and gardens, enchanting audiences with humor, drama, and vibrant visuals. Families watched intently as puppets enacted whimsical stories, joining in laughter and applause at skillful movements and witty dialogue. And these small, temporary performances brought magic into ordinary streets, creating memorable communal moments. Board game evenings at local cafes and clubs became cherished weekly. Rituals for both young adults and older patrons groups played chess, checkers, dominoes, or early strategy games, debating moves, celebrating victories, and sharing laughter. And these structured yet social competitions provided mental engagement while strengthening friendships and neighborhood bonds. Community choirs and amateur vocal ensembles performed at seasonal festivals, churches, and town halls, attracting diverse audiences. Listeners applauded harmonies, joined in familiar refrains, and sometimes contributed to spontaneous, impromptu performances. And these musical gatherings reinforced social ties while allowing participants to express creativity collaboratively. Outdoor sketching and watercolor clubs flourished as artists and enthusiasts explored urban streets, riverbanks, and parks together. Members compared techniques, shared supplies, and sometimes displayed their work during informal exhibitions for friends and neighbors. And these artistic outings combined observation, creativity, and socialization, enriching leisure with subtle education and aesthetic pleasure. Street food stalls and mobile refreshment carts became focal points of social interaction during fairs, sporting events, and promenades. Families and friends gathered, sampling sweet and savory delights, while chatting, laughing, and enjoying the festive atmosphere. And these culinary interactions added flavor, both literal and social, to the everyday experience of leisure. Public lecture series, often delivered by visiting experts, writers, or scientists, attracted curious minds of all ages. Attendees arrived early, discussed ideas during intermissions, and lingered afterward to exchange questions and insights with neighbors. And these educational events transformed intellectual curiosity into a social and shared pleasure, blending learning with leisure seamlessly. Community skating and sledding during winter months offered joyous outdoor recreation for children, adults, and entire families. Neighbors laughed together on frozen ponds, hills, and rinks, enjoying playful contests, graceful glides, and occasional minor spills. And these seasonal traditions created bonds, memories, and a rhythm of outdoor leisure tied to the changing year. Open-air concerts in town squares or on park lawns became regular events where orchestras and jazz bands performed for all audiences. Brought blankets, snacks, and folding chairs, enjoying music while chatting softly and exchanging opinions with friends. And these performances democratized culture, making artistry a shared experience available to every member of the community. Neighborhood storytelling nights, sometimes hosted in homes or small cafes, allowed residents to share personal histories, anecdotes, and imaginative tales. Guests listened, laughed, and occasionally contributed, turning private spaces into arenas of communal engagement and creativity. And these intimate gatherings nurtured memory, reflection, and connection, offering a quieter counterpart to more public entertainment. Traveling circuses continued to tour smaller towns, bringing exotic animals, acrobatic feats, and comedic acts to delighted audiences. Spectators arrived early, shared snacks, and cheered together, experiencing wonder, surprise, and collective excitement in ephemeral moments, and these temporary spectacles offered adventure and joy, connecting communities through shared awe and amusement. Seasonal fairs and harvest festivals incorporated folk dancing, musical contests, and cooking competitions alongside rides, games, and crafts. Communities rehearsed weeks in advance, decorating streets, preparing performances, and practicing contests that showcased local skill and creativity. And these festive events created continuity, tradition, and anticipation, marking the calendar and collective memory with joyous rituals. Civic volunteer activities provided opportunities for socially conscious leisure, combining recreation with contribution and engagement. Participants painted, cleaned, planted, or organized events while discussing ideas, exchanging stories, and forming friendships, and these purposeful activities enriched both mind and spirit, offering satisfaction beyond entertainment alone. Evening promenades along riversides, piers, and tree-lined boulevards remained central to social life, blending exercise, conversation, and reflection. Couples, families, and friends strolled slowly, pausing to admire performances, exchange greetings, or simply enjoy the calming ambience. And these habitual walks exemplified the era's rhythm of leisure, encouraging mindfulness, companionship, and gentle physical activity. Public rooftop and garden gatherings provided elevated spaces for conversation, music, and light refreshments. Above bustling city streets, neighbors exchanged ideas, shared performances, and observed the panorama of urban life beneath a soft glow of lanterns or moonlight. And these elevated venues offered perspective, intimacy, and a serene sense of community within the vibrant pulse of the city. Cultural clubs and social societies organized monthly competitions, exhibitions, and performances, engaging members in creative pursuits from photography and painting to small theater productions. Participants displayed talent, critiqued constructively, and celebrated achievements, and these structured social interactions cultivated both skill and camaraderie, giving purpose and meaning to leisure. Seasonal outdoor festivals blended nature, culture, and sport, providing families with entertainment, music, and friendly competition. Visitors enjoyed games, contests, and exhibitions while sharing meals, stories, and laughter in open-air settings, and these celebrations reinforced communal identity, making leisure both interactive and memorable for all ages. Street performances continued to bring vibrancy to public spaces, with musicians, magicians, dancers, and storytellers entertaining passers-by. Audiences paused, clapped, and joined in spontaneous games or interactive segments, creating dynamic moments of engagement. And these informal spectacles ensured that leisure remained accessible, lively, and deeply communal throughout neighborhoods. Community musical ensembles traveled to schools, hospitals, and smaller neighborhoods, performing for diverse audiences of all ages. People gathered on benches, sidewalks, and lawns, listening, humming, or moving gently to rhythm, enjoying shared artistry. And these mobile performances strengthened cultural accessibility, spreading music and social joy across daily life. Volunteer-led workshops taught practical skills, from carpentry and sewing to basic literacy and early photography techniques. Neighbors attended, shared insights, and collaborated on small projects, finding both recreation and purpose in collective effort. And these workshops demonstrated that leisure could simultaneously be productive, creative, and socially enriching. Neighborhood block parties became frequent occasions for shared meals, music, games, and dancing, reinforcing community identity. Families and friends decorated streets, exchanged recipes, and participated in games that spanned generations. And these festive gatherings offered vibrant, joyous, and inclusive spaces where leisure became communal tradition. Public libraries hosted storytelling, puppet shows, and interactive reading hours for children, transforming quiet spaces into centers of imagination. Parents and caregivers attended with children, sharing discussion and laughter as tales unfolded through performance and narration. And these programs reinforced early education while establishing social and recreational routines deeply rooted in culture. Community sports events, often informal yet organized, brought residents together to participate, compete, and spectate. Whether in local baseball, tennis, or cycling matches, people celebrated teamwork, talent, and neighborhood pride in spirited fashion. And these events fostered both physical engagement and social cohesion, linking recreation with collective identity. Royal courts were labyrinths of protocol, secrecy, and intrigue, where every glance, gesture, and word carried hidden meaning. Nobles navigated complex social hierarchies, forming alliances, rivalries, and friendships that often shifted overnight. And in these halls of power, chance encounters sometimes altered destinies in ways no chronicler could predict. On one winter evening, a young envoy arrived unexpectedly at a palace gate, bearing news that would change the course of a succession. His hurried steps and misdelivered messages created confusion that rippled through the corridors of power, silently but decisively. And what seemed a minor misstep would eventually influence alliances, marriages, and even the outcome of battles. Kings and queens relied on trusted advisors, yet sometimes mere coincidences determined which counsel was heard first. A letter misplaced, a messenger delayed by a storm, or an unplanned conversation could shift policy in directions unforeseen. And these subtle twists of fate often shaped the destiny of nations more than deliberate strategy ever could. A royal banquet once hosted an accidental meeting between two nobles from rival regions, both unaware of each other's presence. A dropped goblet, hastily exchanged apology, sparked a dialogue that eventually led to unexpected reconciliation. And the chance interaction would prevent a feud from escalating, quietly altering the future of territories and alliances. During sieges, miscommunications and unintended encounters often saved lives, altered strategies, or reshaped battlefields entirely. A stray arrow, a mistaken signal, or a messenger lost to the night sometimes determined whether victory or defeat prevailed. And historians would later record these events as strategic genius, unaware of the coincidences quietly guiding outcomes. Court jesters, often dismissed as entertainers, frequently influenced decisions by their timing, wit, or inadvertent advice. A joke at the right moment, a careless insult, or a casual observation could spark reflection or diplomacy among those in power. And these small, seemingly trivial incidents sometimes prevented conflict or encouraged unforeseen alliances. Princes and princesses frequently experienced encounters orchestrated by chance during daily routines, walks, or hunting excursions. A misplaced note, a sudden rainstorm, or a fleeting glance would bring people together whose paths were destined to intertwine in marriages. Treaties and alliances sometimes emerged from what appeared to be accidents rather than deliberate design. In the chaos of war, soldiers often survived or perished due to coincidences beyond their control or comprehension. A shift in the wind, a fallen branch, or an overlooked instruction could shield a unit from harm or doom them to disaster. And these moments highlighted the fragile balance between chance and strategy in the theater of conflict. Royal hunts offered settings for unexpected encounters where nobles, generals, and spies mingled under the guise of leisure. A sudden misstep, an unplanned chase, or a stray hound sometimes led to revelations, alliances, or confrontations, and what appeared as leisure activity often determined who would rise or fall in the corridors of power. Secret treaties were occasionally discovered by sheer accident, whether through an open window, a misplaced scroll, or a distracted scribe. The discovery could prevent war, incite revolt, or trigger rapid diplomacy with consequences rippling for decades. And the line between deliberate planning and fortuitous coincidence blurred in ways no historian could fully untangle. Royal correspondence often contained subtle coincidences that determined the timing of decisions. Military campaigns and alliances, a delayed letter due to a storm, a courier choosing an alternate route, or an unanticipated stop could shift entire strategies. And these minor logistical quirks sometimes proved more decisive than careful deliberation in matters of life, death, and power. A general once avoided disaster by resting in a small village. Unaware that this detour coincided with enemy movements, the village offered shelter, provisions, and intelligence gathered by chance from local residents. Unseen by higher command, and what seemed a minor convenience would later be celebrated as tactical brilliance in war chronicles. Diplomatic dinners frequently became stages for coincidence, where seating arrangements, misplaced invitations, or delayed arrivals mattered. An envoy seated next to a rival, or an unanticipated conversation at the wine table, sometimes diffused tensions or ignited disputes, and the fates of kingdoms occasionally turned on moments that seemed trivial at first glance. Royal marriages were often influenced by accidental encounters rather than strict political planning. A carriage breakdown, a sudden storm, or an unplanned festival meeting could bring future spouses together unexpectedly, and these chance meetings sometimes united dynasties or reshaped alliances for generations to come. Generals and commanders often relied on scouts and messengers, yet random delays, lost notes, or misread maps created unforeseen advantages. A misdirected patrol might stumble upon hidden terrain, an enemy encampment, or a key strategic position by accident, and these coincidences frequently determined whether a campaign succeeded or failed, highlighting the unpredictable nature of warfare. In palace corridors, servants and minor officials occasionally witnessed private conversations, letters, or events by sheer chance. Their observations sometimes reached the monarch in ways that altered decisions regarding policy, appointments, or punishment, and these inadvertent interventions demonstrated that fate often moved quietly through the unnoticed corners of power. A sudden illness or accident sometimes removed key figures from battle or court, altering leadership and opportunity. Unexpectedly, the resulting absence could prevent conflict, create promotions, or force new strategies among both allies and enemies. And these occurrences illustrated the precarious interplay between health, chance, and historical outcomes in turbulent times. During sieges and conflicts, miscommunications often resulted in armies moving in ways entirely unplanned. A misread signal, a misheard order, or an accidental diversion could lead to surprise victories or unforeseen retreats. And these unintentional actions frequently became celebrated as brilliant maneuvers long after the chaos had passed. Spies, double agents, and informants sometimes acted without knowledge that their actions coincided perfectly with broader strategies. A casual conversation overheard in a tavern, a misdelivered note, or an unplanned encounter could shift intelligence advantage, and the outcomes of wars were occasionally determined by events that appeared purely coincidental, yet changed the course of history. Royal decrees and proclamations occasionally reached unintended recipients first due to courier errors or misdirection. These early recipients sometimes acted upon the information, unintentionally shaping events in ways that were unforeseen by the monarch, and the unpredictability of timing in communication underscored the role of coincidence in governance and conflict. Historic alliances were sometimes forged not by careful negotiation but by random encounters, chance interventions, or unplanned assistance. A shared meal, a sudden storm forcing strangers into the same room, or a chance meeting at a hunting lodge could spark lasting partnerships. And these seemingly minor coincidences often produced consequences that echoed across generations. A misfired cannon during a siege once saved a small contingent of soldiers who had been trapped in exposed terrain. The miscalculation forced enemy forces to retreat temporarily, giving the defenders a chance to regroup and reinforce, and historians would later record the outcome as brilliant timing, unaware of the serendipity that shaped it. An intercepted letter intended for a rival court ended up in the hands of an unsuspecting diplomat, sparking unexpected alliances. The accidental exposure allowed negotiations to proceed in ways no one had predicted, reshaping regional power dynamics, and these unforeseen transmissions demonstrated that chance could influence diplomacy as much as formal treaties. During a royal procession, an unplanned detour introduced to princes from distant lands who would later form an important alliance. A blocked street and a sudden downpour forced them into the same sheltered carriage, creating the opportunity for conversation, and what seemed an inconvenient delay eventually altered diplomatic relations for decades to come. A general delayed by illness arrived just in time to prevent a disastrous miscommunication between two allied units. His presence corrected errors that would have led to significant losses, ensuring coordination at a critical moment. And the survival of both soldiers and strategy hinged on coincidence rather than careful planning. Royal banquets were often the stage for chance encounters, where wandering courtiers, displaced guests, or mistaken invitations mattered. A slip of a wine bottle, an unplanned toast, or an unexpected seating change sometimes led to conversation that altered alliances, and these seemingly trivial events frequently became turning points in politics, unrecognized at the moment they occurred. A soldier carrying a letter through enemy territory accidentally left it behind, only for a sympathetic civilian to deliver it safely. The message arrived just in time to warn a commander of a potential ambush, preventing significant losses and confusion, and the course of the campaign relied on a chain of unplanned human actions that no commander could predict. During peace negotiations, a misplaced document forced envoys to meet in an unfamiliar location, inadvertently preventing a confrontation. The accidental relocation allowed for calmer discussions, avoiding tension that might have escalated into renewed hostilities. And this small coincidence shifted the balance of negotiation, producing a lasting peace where conflict had seemed inevitable. Court musicians occasionally played at private events, their performances influencing the mood and decisions of attending nobles. A particularly moving piece at a decisive meeting softened hearts, encouraged compromise, or inspired unexpected proposals. And these subtle interventions revealed the influence of art and chance in moments of political importance. An unplanned snowfall trapped two rival commanders in the same inn for several hours, forcing conversation and mutual understanding. Their shared predicament created an unexpected opportunity to negotiate truces and exchange intelligence in a neutral setting. And historians later credited careful diplomacy, unaware that fate had provided the necessary conditions. Royal messengers, often traveling through dangerous terrain, sometimes experienced random delays that unintentionally prevented disasters. A river crossing, a fallen tree, or a sudden storm redirected their route, allowing reinforcements to arrive just in time. And these unpredictable events altered battles and campaigns, demonstrating the hidden hand of coincidence in warfare. Accidental meetings during hunting expeditions often led to political alliances, arranged marriages, or military cooperation. A lost stag or a misdirected hunting party frequently brought rival figures into contact under informal circumstances, and these chance interactions shaped the destinies of kingdoms, demonstrating how leisure could unexpectedly influence strategy. An overlooked corridor in a palace once led a visiting dignitary to overhear a crucial discussion between advisors. The unintended eavesdropping provided insight that changed diplomatic stances, prevented missteps, and forged alliances, and what might have been mere wandering curiosity ended up as a decisive historical intervention. Supply convoys occasionally encountered delays that unexpectedly synchronized with enemy movements, preventing ambushes or shortages. A sudden storm or blocked road forced soldiers to camp, providing unexpected reconnaissance opportunities for both sides, and these coincidences altered outcomes, highlighting the unpredictable interplay of environment, chance, and military decision-making. A minor illness in a royal heir shifted succession plans, prompting new treaties and alliances between kingdoms. Courtiers and generals adjusted their strategies in response, unaware that the illness, seemingly trivial, had redirected political currents. And this twist of fate demonstrated that even health and biology could shape historical trajectories. An accidental exposure of secret intelligence forced commanders to reconsider tactics, inadvertently averting potential disaster. A misdelivered scroll or overlooked courier created moments where quick thinking replaced planning, producing critical advantage, and these chance revelations often proved more impactful than months of deliberate strategy in determining outcomes. A jester's improvised joke during tense court negotiations occasionally diffused hostility and inspired compromise. The humor, arriving at just the right moment, altered moods, shifted attention, and allowed agreement where none seemed possible. And these fleeting interventions showed that even frivolous acts could carry weight in high-stakes diplomacy. A misfired arrow or cannon shot occasionally influenced battle formations, redirecting troops and preventing greater casualties. A seemingly random deviation changed lines of attack, confused enemies, or bought time for reinforcement, and commanders often credited skill, unaware that fortune had quietly shaped the moment. Random encounters in taverns or marketplaces sometimes influenced war strategies, as informal conversations revealed critical intelligence. A casual remark, overheard plan, or inadvertent confession altered decisions in subtle but decisive ways. And these everyday coincidences could determine victories or failures long before formal orders were given. A sudden illness among generals, envoys, or courtiers frequently prompted replacements whose decisions shifted alliances unexpectedly. New personalities brought different perspectives, inadvertently preventing conflict or creating opportunity. And these unplanned substitutions demonstrated that human fragility and chance often guided the course of power. A messenger lost in an unfamiliar town sometimes stumbled upon a hidden informant, gaining intelligence that reshaped strategy. The accidental meeting provided insight into enemy positions, morale, or intentions that commanders could not have predicted, and these unplanned encounters repeatedly proved more decisive than meticulous planning in the theater of war. Courts often witnessed coincidences where a minor servant or scribe inadvertently altered the outcome of important decisions. A misfiled decree, dropped note, or misplaced key document could prevent disasters, inspire creativity, or accelerate negotiation. And these invisible hands highlighted the fragile interplay between order, chaos, and chance within the machinery of power. In medieval villages, small, unnoticed events often shaped the daily rhythm of life in ways far beyond imagination. A chance meeting at the marketplace, a misdelivered letter, or a shared loaf of bread sometimes created lasting relationships, and these quiet coincidences wove the fabric of community, subtly influencing destinies without fanfare. Bakers and merchants occasionally discovered unexpected connections through minor mishaps in trade or delivery. A miscounted coin, a misplaced package, or an accidental introduction often led to partnerships, friendships, or even romance. And such ordinary errors quietly reshaped economic and social life in ways no historian could fully track. Travelers resting at village inns sometimes shared rooms due to overbooking, creating unforeseen alliances and conversations. A storm or delayed wagon might force strangers to share stories, food, and counsel for a night or longer, and these brief encounters could spark decisions or ideas that echoed for years in the community. Children playing near riverbanks often found themselves involved in incidents that altered local dynamics unexpectedly. A floating log, A runaway goat or a sudden splash could lead to discovery, rescue, or interaction with influential villagers. And these minor events shaped social hierarchies, mentorships, and childhood friendships in ways adults seldom noticed. Local craftsmen frequently stumbled upon collaborations by chance when materials were misdelivered or workshops coincided. A missed appointment or a dropped tool sometimes brought two artisans together to create a project neither had planned, and the resulting creations often became cherished, practical, or profitable, demonstrating the hidden impact of coincidence. Village festivals thrived on unplanned interactions among neighbors, travelers, and performers, generating social and economic energy. A spontaneous dance, overheard story, or accidentally exchanged trinket could spark lasting bonds or playful rivalries, and these lively occasions transformed ordinary celebrations into events that shaped community memory for decades. Unexpected weather events often altered the course of everyday life, creating opportunities and challenges alike. A sudden rainstorm could delay work, force people to shelter together, or reroute trade, leading to unplanned encounters, and villagers frequently credited skill or providence, unaware that chance had quietly orchestrated the day's outcome. In crowded markets, accidental meetings often resulted in the exchange of news, advice, or even secrets. A bumped shoulder, a shared basket, or a misheard comment sometimes sparked friendships, rivalries, or new ventures, and these minor coincidences became the unseen engine of information flow in daily medieval life. Monks and scholars traveling between abbeys occasionally arrived at the same village by coincidence, sparking intellectual exchange. A delayed horse, a washed-out bridge, or a misread map brought learned minds together unexpectedly, and the resulting conversations influenced local education, traditions, and even the spread of knowledge across regions. Household mistakes often produced unexpected benefits, such as a burned loaf inspiring a new recipe or shared meal. A misplaced ingredient or overheated pot could lead to discoveries that enriched family life and community culture, and such small accidents became stories passed down, blending practicality with chance and creativity. Accidental encounters with travelers from distant regions introduced exotic goods, ideas, and customs to remote villages. A wandering merchant, a lost soldier, or a delayed caravan might interact with locals in ways that altered fashion, cuisine, or rituals, and these chance meetings facilitated cultural exchange long before formal trade networks were fully established. Children often learned life lessons through coincidences, such as discovering hidden paths, observing rare animals, or stumbling upon gatherings. These unplanned experiences shaped curiosity, courage, and problem-solving skills while connecting generations through shared wonder, and these moments demonstrated that chance encounters could educate and bond far more effectively than structured instruction. Village councils sometimes made decisions based on unexpected interventions or timely advice from a passing traveler. A casual suggestion overheard at a well, a misdelivered note, or a sudden appearance could change policy or priorities, and the unseen influence of coincidence guided communal life, blending practicality with chance in decision-making. Medical treatments and remedies often relied on accidental discoveries, whether through misapplied herbs or unintended combinations. A mismeasured potion A forgotten ingredient, or a patient's unique reaction, sometimes produced a cure by sheer luck, and these discoveries spread quietly, improving health and well-being in ways that appeared deliberate but were born of happenstance. Local blacksmiths frequently encountered unforeseen circumstances that shaped their craft and social standing. A broken tool, a sudden fire, or a misdirected delivery sometimes resulted in innovation, collaboration, or reputation gain, and these seemingly minor accidents contributed to the evolution of skills, commerce, and local influence. Religious gatherings occasionally brought unrelated villagers together through timing, location, or incidental seating arrangements. Neighbors who might never have spoken formed connections during ceremonies, festivals, or pilgrimages due to shared proximity, and these small intersections often forged alliances, friendships, and support networks that endured for generations. Wandering minstrels and performers sometimes influenced communities simply by passing through at the right moment. A song, joke, or story overheard by the right person could inspire artistic creation, political thought, or social change, and these fleeting appearances demonstrated how chance and timing could ripple through daily medieval life. Construction projects often faced coincidences, like materials delivered to the wrong site or tools lost during transport. These mishaps sometimes prompted innovation, collaboration, or serendipitous meetings that altered local infrastructure or skills, and the resulting structures, techniques, or knowledge became enduring testaments to accidental influence. Unintended meetings between farmers at crossroads, fields, or watering holes sometimes resulted in shared labor or trade agreements. A brief conversation sparked by a passing cart, a sudden rainfall, or a stray animal might solve a logistical problem, and these everyday coincidences maintained the social and economic cohesion of rural communities without ceremony. Petty theft, mislaid items, or lost livestock occasionally led to unexpected reconciliations or social interventions. A misplaced cow, a stolen loaf, or a forgotten package could force dialogue, negotiation, and ultimately strengthened trust, and these small disruptions revealed how misfortune and coincidence intertwined with community stability. Apprentices and young workers frequently stumbled into mentoring relationships through random seating, timing, or accidents at workshops. A bumped shoulder, a shared tool, or a misdirected question might spark a bond that guided skill development. And these minor coincidences ensured that knowledge and craft passed naturally from generation to generation. Seasonal changes often prompted spontaneous events, such as floods, early frosts, or unseasonal winds. These conditions altered travel, work, or trade, resulting in chance encounters and unforeseen outcomes, and the rhythms of everyday life were constantly shaped by the interplay of environment, timing, and human response. Occasionally, wandering monks and pilgrims arrived at villages at precisely the moment their presence could solve local disputes. A shared meal, conversation, or blessing offered unexpectedly often led to reconciliation between neighbors or families. And these chance encounters demonstrated the unseen impact of timing, presence, and human connection in everyday life. Markets and fairs often became stages for serendipitous discovery, where lost items led to unexpected reunions or friendships. A dropped scarf, a misplaced basket, or a forgotten purse could trigger conversations that changed social dynamics, and These small, unnoticed moments intertwined with commerce, communication, and community in subtle ways. Children frequently stumbled upon rare herbs, hidden paths, or secret meeting places while exploring. Altering the course of learning, a simple curiosity or accident in play could reveal resources, shelter, or mentors previously unknown to the family, and these discoveries shaped survival, education, and social bonds across villages, blending chance with necessity. A misdelivered letter or poorly timed courier often reshaped daily routines, leading to interactions that would never have occurred otherwise. Neighbors crossed paths, strangers exchanged news, and disputes were avoided simply because a message arrived late, and the delicate chain of human movement and coincidence became the invisible force guiding ordinary medieval life. Occasional livestock escapes prompted chance gatherings of villagers who might otherwise never meet or collaborate. A wandering cow or goat drew neighbors together for capture, conversation, and sometimes the sharing of knowledge, and these unplanned events nurtured community cohesion while integrating problem-solving with social interaction. Weather disruptions often created moments where strangers sought shelter together, forming bonds that endured long afterward. A sudden downpour, frost, or windstorm forced cooperation, conversation, and sharing that would ripple through relationships, and the community learned that even the whims of nature could orchestrate meaningful encounters. Travelers occasionally shared lodging due to overcrowding, forging friendships, business ties, or knowledge exchange in the process. An innkeeper's error or an unexpected guest sometimes led to the passing of stories, recipes, or practical advice, and these fleeting encounters left permanent imprints on local culture and social networks. Misplaced tools or farming equipment often led apprentices, farmers, and craftsmen to interact unexpectedly, sparking collaboration. A shared hammer, a borrowed plow, or an accidentally switched cart sometimes produced solutions no single person had anticipated. And these accidental interactions nurtured skill, trust, and resourcefulness across generations. Neighborhood disputes occasionally dissolved because of coincidental timing, like a delayed messenger or chance arrival of a mediator. To parties who might have clashed, encountered one another when emotions were calmer or circumstances forced compromise, and these small, almost invisible coincidences maintained peace and social harmony in daily medieval life. Chance encounters during pilgrimages or religious festivals sometimes introduced new ideas, remedies, or alliances to isolated villages. Travelers shared knowledge of herbs, trade, and distant customs, enriching local practices in subtle yet profound ways. And the flow of information often relied more on coincidence and timing than on formal instruction or governance. Cooking errors, such as a burnt loaf or misplaced ingredient, occasionally led to unexpected culinary innovation. Families and neighbors discovered new recipes, flavors, or preservation methods by accident while sharing meals, and these small discoveries enriched both daily sustenance and social cohesion through shared delight. Children playing near watermills or bridges often witnessed or initiated events that changed local dynamics unexpectedly. A spilled bucket, a floating object, or a lost tool could trigger collaboration, discovery, or chance observation, and these everyday accidents influenced learning, relationships, and even village infrastructure over time. Occasional misplacement of coins, goods, or possessions created opportunities for honesty and social interaction. A lost purse returned by a stranger or a miscounted transaction often sparked gratitude, trust, and unexpected alliance, and these minor financial coincidences subtly reinforced morality, commerce, and communal trust. Unexpected arrivals of traveling performers, jugglers, or storytellers at village squares often altered local entertainment and education. Audiences laughed, learned, and shared stories, sometimes inspiring new games, customs, or creative expression in the community, and these transient visitors left long-lasting impressions through moments that were entirely unplanned. Random discoveries of medicinal plants by children or apprentices often saved lives or improved community health unexpectedly. A wandering child might notice a rare herb or fungus, inadvertently providing a remedy for a neighbor's ailment. And these coincidental findings spread knowledge and fostered respect for observation, patience, and curiosity. Local celebrations were often shaped by chance, like sudden rain showers, delayed musicians, or misdirected invitations. These small disruptions produced new dances, songs, or rituals that endured for generations as part of community tradition, and the festival itself became a living testament to the interplay of planning, accident, and improvisation. Fallen branches, minor floods, or unplanned obstacles frequently led villagers to meet and collaborate unexpectedly. Neighbors who might not have interacted under normal circumstances shared labor, conversation, and problem-solving, and these everyday coincidences ensured that social bonds remained strong while practical needs were met collectively. Accidental overhearing of conversations or private discussions sometimes altered local decisions, marriages, or trade arrangements. A passing villager might learn news that influenced negotiations, partnerships, or family decisions in subtle yet lasting ways, and the rhythm of daily life often depended on these unnoticed but critical intersections of chance and timing. Farm animals often triggered accidental discoveries or interventions, whether wandering into a field, breaking fences, or chasing one another. The resulting gatherings, conversations, or improvisations frequently strengthened social ties and inspired creative solutions. And these seemingly trivial disruptions were essential threads in the fabric of communal life and cooperation. Tradesmen and artisans occasionally collaborated through misfortune, such as broken equipment or misdelivered materials. A dropped anvil, a shared plank, or a borrowed tool might spark cooperation that produced innovation, artistry, or practical solutions, and these chance-driven collaborations strengthened craft knowledge, social trust, and local reputation. Sudden illness, injury, or minor misfortune often required villagers to assist one another, creating bonds of trust and interdependence. Neighbors shared remedies, labor, or shelter, often meeting for the first time under circumstances of necessity, and these serendipitous interventions reinforced the network of communal support critical to medieval survival. Unexpected encounters during travel along paths, bridges, or river crossings frequently resulted in lasting friendships or alliances. A lost way, a sudden rain, or a chance crossing brought strangers into shared experience and cooperation, and the pattern of life itself relied heavily on these unpredictable moments that stitched communities together invisibly. A wandering cat or dog sometimes caused villagers to meet unexpectedly, leading to assistance, conversation, or playful competition. A startled animal could chase a child into a neighbor's garden, prompting introductions, shared laughter, or joint problem-solving. And these small, animal-driven coincidences quietly shaped relationships, alliances, and everyday life in profound ways. Misplaced tools, farming implements, or household items frequently brought strangers together, sparking collaboration and innovation. A borrowed axe, a mislaid bucket, or a switched wheelbarrow often required cooperative effort, leading to new friendships, and these everyday errors became conduits for learning, trust, and communal growth over generations. Seasonal fairs occasionally coincided with unexpected visitors, travelers, or merchants, enriching local experience and economy. A wandering bard, trader, or artisan introduced new ideas, skills, or products that villagers eagerly shared and adopted. And these fortuitous encounters ensured that communities evolved culturally, socially, and economically through chance interaction. Children discovering hidden paths, forgotten wells, or secret nooks often led to unexpected adventures and social interactions. One child's curiosity might guide an entire group to new resources, mentors, or storytelling opportunities in the village. And these playful coincidences fostered learning, imagination, and the subtle weaving of communal memory. Accidental observations, like glimpsing a hidden flower, an unusual bird, or a stranger's arrival, frequently influenced daily choices. A villager might discover a medicinal herb or a potential trade route purely by being in the right place at the right time. And these seemingly trivial events shaped livelihoods, survival strategies, and the subtle rhythms of village life. Misdelivered letters, scrolls, or messages occasionally prompted meetings, advice, or mediation that otherwise would not occur. A note intended for one household arriving at another sparked dialogue, resolved misunderstanding, or created collaboration. And these communication accidents silently reinforced the fabric of social interaction and local governance. Weather anomalies often produced coincidental gatherings, like villagers sheltering together under a single roof or tree. A sudden downpour, unseasonal frost, or gust of wind forced proximity, conversation, and shared solutions. And these moments subtly directed the flow of knowledge, assistance, and friendship across communities. Accidental reunions between travelers, exiles, or long-separated family members frequently changed personal and local history. A lost way, an overturned cart, or a misdirected message might bring people together unexpectedly, creating lasting bonds. And these chance encounters reshaped relationships, inheritance, and sometimes even local decision-making. Unplanned acts of generosity, like sharing bread, fire, or shelter, often sparked reciprocal kindness and community trust. A neighbor offering aid during illness, accident, or misfortune inspired long-term support networks and cooperative behavior. And these small coincidences created social cohesion that allowed medieval communities to survive and thrive. Children's games and playful mischief often resulted in unexpected social lessons, discoveries, or interactions with elders. A stray ball, runaway goat, or secret path could bring them into contact with new mentors, friends, or family stories, and these happenstance moments educated, entertained, and connected generations through shared experience. Occasional food shortages or surpluses led to fortuitous sharing, trade, or barter that strengthened village economy and relationships. A miscounted harvest, forgotten basket, or unexpected gift sometimes prevented conflict or inspired cooperation, and these everyday coincidences highlighted the delicate balance of scarcity, generosity, and community well-being. Artisans and craftsmen occasionally created innovations through mistakes, misplaced materials, or accidental discoveries. A misapplied brush, dropped tool, or overheard suggestion could spark new techniques, designs, or functional solutions, and these coincidences ensured that creativity, skill, and progress remained intertwined with everyday life. Occasional illness, injury, or unexpected recovery often redirected labor, responsibilities, and social interaction in communities. A farmer bedridden for a day might meet someone delivering supplies, sparking a conversation or alliance, and these health-driven coincidences subtly influenced labor distribution, relationships, and decisions. Misheard advice, overheard conversations, or unintentional glimpses of private activity occasionally shaped local choices. A villager might act on misunderstood instructions, inadvertently creating opportunities, preventing conflict, or discovering resources, and these subtle interventions demonstrated that knowledge, perception, and chance guided everyday life. Accidental discoveries of water sources, fertile soil, or game in the forest often altered settlement patterns or trade routes. A wandering villager or hunting party might stumble upon a stream, grove, or meadow that benefited the community, and these serendipitous findings shaped economic, social, and survival strategies across generations. Occasional storms, fires, or other natural events forced collaboration, resourcefulness, and unexpected social gatherings. Neighbors who might never meet under ordinary circumstances shared labor, protection, and stories during crises, and these coincidental events strengthened bonds, trust, and communal resilience against unpredictable challenges. Minor conflicts often resolved themselves due to coincidental timing, distraction, or accidental intervention by a third party. A delayed messenger, wandering child, or dropped item could prevent escalation and redirect conversation toward compromise, and these invisible threads of coincidence quietly maintained social harmony and community stability. Travelers' unplanned arrivals, whether for trade, pilgrimage, or curiosity, often introduced knowledge, customs, or remedies. A wandering monk or merchant could influence local practice or belief purely through casual interaction, and these chance encounters brought novelty, education, and cultural exchange to villages otherwise isolated from larger networks. Animals occasionally mediated human interaction, as wandering herds escaped pets, or work animals created shared experiences. A cow breaking through a fence might unite neighbors to repair it, sparking conversation and long-term cooperation. And these small accidents demonstrated how everyday life was intertwined with serendipity and practical collaboration. Even the most ordinary household mishaps, like spilling water, dropping a basket, or misplacing an item, sometimes produced unforeseen benefits. Neighbors might assist, offer advice, or become acquainted through these minor accidents, creating lasting connections, and the pattern of daily coincidences subtly guided both survival and social cohesion in medieval communities. As we step back from the labyrinth of medieval life, the sheer influence of coincidence becomes undeniable, from royal courts to village markets, from grand battles to the smallest daily mishaps. Chance shaped destinies, and what appears as history in textbooks often conceals a hidden web of unforeseen events quietly guiding outcomes. Kings, generals, and courtiers believed strategy alone determined success. Yet fate intervened in subtle ways: a misdelivered letter, an accidental meeting, or a random storm frequently redirected lives and policies. And these invisible threads reveal that history is as much about chance as it is about deliberate design. Among common folk, every dropped basket, shared meal, or wandering child contributed to the unfolding of life. The smallest coincidences nurtured community, creativity, and survival across villages and towns alike. And through these everyday events, we glimpse the extraordinary power of randomness intertwined with human endeavor. Royal marriages, treaties, and wars often hinged on moments so fleeting that their influence went unnoticed. A jester's joke, a delayed messenger, or a misread map could change the trajectory of kingdoms forever. And the closer we examine the past, the more we realize that chance shaped the world in ways history rarely records. As historians and storytellers, we are reminded that human lives are woven with unpredictable threads. Every life, decision, and action intersects with forces beyond comprehension, creating patterns we can barely trace. And perhaps it is within these hidden coincidences that the true magic and mystery of history reside. In the quiet corners of daily life, where peasants, artisans, and travelers went about their routines, stories unfolded. Moments of chance led to innovation, alliances, friendship, and survival that would echo through generations. And by observing these subtle interconnections, we gain a deeper understanding of how past lives shaped our present. The medieval world was a stage for both deliberate action and the invisible hand of coincidence. From epic battles to simple village mishaps, from strategic councils to wandering children, chance left its mark. And by acknowledging these hidden threads, we can appreciate history not only as a chronicle of events, but as a tapestry of endless possibility. Ultimately, history is a dance between intention and happenstance, strategy and serendipity, power and unpredictability. The kings and peasants, soldiers and merchants, monks and minstrels all moved through a world where chance mattered, and in that dance we find a story richer, more human, and far more fascinating than any single chronicler could capture. So as we close this journey through medieval coincidences, we are reminded that life has always been a mixture of plan and accident. Every choice, encounter, and misfortune echoes through time in ways both visible and invisible. And the extraordinary coincidences of the past invite us to wonder, reflect, and marvel at the hidden currents that shape every human story.